We're live and I guess it's 5, at least in the Pacific time, it's 5. So I wanted to thank you for joining me on Kieran and Lucyk McDonald. And I just had an incredible day. Oh my gosh, I'm in the middle of moving. So don't worry too much about it. Barely got out. We've been sitting here packing, renovating and all sorts of stuff. So anyway, we had a very exciting day. And I mean, we as in a lot of us had it. And the reason why is because we did a show who was actually Danny Henderson and myself today. And that just went live a few hours ago. And I've been inundated with phone calls and emails, and already I've been talking to people. My Substack is going off the wall. I've had a whole bunch of requests on my clanmother13 at Gmail to meet with them. People have got questions. People are hungry for disclosure. And so we talked a little bit about stuff I don't usually talk about, from a health perspective, but I did today. So let's take a look at it. So it's Kirsten's in here and a few other people. So one of the things I wanted to talk about. So if you don't know who Danny Henderson is, I want you to know who Danny Henderson is. Danny Henderson is part of the Galactic Spiritual Informers, basically community, and also she's doing conferences here. So I think this is really, really important to get in touch with what she's been doing. So there is so much available, and let's get on top of it. So I'm going to show you a little bit about what we did today that got aired. We did this on Monday, so I've been waiting all week for this to go. So I'm like, yay, yay, Daddy, yay, Karen. Anyway, so this was part of some of the really exciting stuff in here. So it's under Danny Henderson, D-A-N-I. Actually, it's funny, after I got all these letters, I don't think anyone has actually put her, everyone kept giving me D-A-N-Y, D-A-N-N-Y, but it's D-A-N-I, Henderson. And so we're going to take a look at that here in a second. So really important to see what she's got available here. And Danny has put an incredible conference coming up. So for you guys that are in the UK or want to fly to the UK, her conferences are going to have, let me tell you, there is going to be so many people. And it will be, can you imagine, Billy Carson, Kathy O'Brien, and a few other people David Icke. I'm like, where? Yeah, no, it's going to be great. Bonjour, comment ça va? Chantal's in the room as well. And who else is in here? Rowdy Raz, 33. So anyway, I'm putting that link in here, and I'm just going to screen share a little bit here because it's really important. I'm going to also put Danny's Facebook and stuff in here because, a lot of people aren't aware of, I guess, the true essence of people, and what they've actually brought to the table here. Because I've been following Danny or Danielle, whatever you want to say, for a long time. And in there, you get to kind of know someone, and she was involved a lot with the spiritual community, Dr. Michael Sala, JP, all these army guys that are now kind of out there that are talking from the Space Force and making disclosures. So there's a lot of things in here, but let's take a look at what she's done because it's a body of work. It really is. And when you take a look at someone, I mean, how could you not love her? That woman's putting herself out there. So hopefully you will be able to see my entire screen here. So one of the things in here, you can see with what Danny's doing, she's got her Facebook group here, and it's Galactic Spiritual Informers, okay, and .com. And this particular conference is going to be going on in September, but look at the people she's got up here. She's got Billy Carson, Kathy O'Brien, Transformation of America, Hidden Knowledge, and then David Icke. That is absolutely just incredible alone right there. So I think that's pretty exciting when you take a look at that. So in here, if you take a look, Spiritual Informers, she's also on Instagram, and she's also got a Twitter X account. She's also been one of the ones that have been bringing in Tony Rodriguez. Preven Moha's going to be in there. And let's just take a look here because, this is where this is going to be going on September the 10th, 11th, and 12th in Eastbourne, UK. So let's just take a look at what she's got here.
Lakes The world is not controlled by those who appear to control us. It's controlled from the ships.
Connecting the dots from the ancient past to the cabal and the controllers and the elite oligarchs that are controlling and running this planet right now today.
I want to expose Tartaria to the world and show exactly what these parasites are capable of.
I'm going to expose the Vatican for the Luciferian beast organization that they are.
I'm a survivor of CIA, MK Ultra mind control. We've been conditioned into what we should know.
I ended up working on a UFO for about 12 years.
The spiritual realm and interdimensional realm is real. Angels and demons are real.
September 10th, 11th and 12th, Eastbourne, England, Galactic Spiritual Informers Connection Conference.
So as you can see, she's really well connected, isn't she? Right? To be able to bring those kind of people together for a disclosure conference. She's not new to the disclosure movement at all. She's been attending a lot of other people's. I've seen her at the Basis Conference with Miles Johnson. I'm a conference speaker as well and have been, I think, for about 8-10 years already. But I saw her in the audience. I got her and I got what she was doing in there. She's helping other people behind the scenes. And it's not always about being out on the platform, being on one of those panels. It's about helping other people, in the background. A lot of times people don't realize that. I was like, I see Dani. I can see what she's up to. And then one of the other things, how many of you guys know what basically Remer Fulmick has been doing? Okay, Remer Fulmick in here was actually one of the lawyers that was in there disclosing some of the stuff to do with the injections. This was a lawyer that had not only a bar in Germany, they were collecting information all over the world, and they were trying to stop stuff and get people prosecuted. He was in Mexico, and by the way, he also had a California US license. So he was kind of busy. He got his stuff together. And so what happened there is all of a sudden, next thing you know, he's in Mexico. All of a sudden his passport goes missing. Next thing you know, he goes to the embassy just to get the passport and get it looked after. And he's basically taken illegally and abducted and taken back, flown to Germany. And he's been basically in jail ever since. This stuff, like I said, some people go at any lengths to shut the stuff off and, set people up or do whatever they want, from the inside out or whatever. There's a whole bunch of ridiculous stuff that can be dealt with. But note, they've been keeping these people in jail, as many other people have been trying to put these in here for a couple years now. So this is not the first time in there, but all of a sudden I'm on my Twitter account and I'm looking at this and I'm going, whoa, that's Dani. She's standing next to Andrew, who's the lawyer. So, here she is out of her own volition, and she flies back to where they're trying to get the trials and the pre-trials dealt with. So, kudos to people that have balls, right? That stand up. It's not easy to do that and put yourself out on the platform and then give others platform, for spreading some of this information. I think it's just absolutely amazing. And how is Anne doing today? I hope you guys are great. So this is a really important thing. So I'm going to take a look at one of the things we did. And it's funny. She got a hold of me 3 years ago. And if I hadn't popped into whatever things, and Terry goes, do you realize who was in the chat room? Dani, do you realize who's sitting in your chat room? Karen's in here. And so she reached out, and it took us a little bit to coordinate, but it's always a thing. So we got to talk for about, literally 10 minutes ahead of time. And so that we aired today. So if you got the chance, I'll show you what it looks like. And then I've put the link in there above. So this is actually what the actual Q was. So we talked a little bit about what's called Q552. So as you've got Stargate 10, which is, the Iranian stuff right now. And as you like to run Iranian, if you get it. Anyway, Q552 is known as Nelson. Nelson is in the Sinaiac territory, not the Cree, not the Okanagan, not the Kootenays, but the Sinaiac territory, which runs basically from close to Spokane, as you think, upper British Columbia, and a large chunk of it. So anyway, this Q552 is near Nelson, as you think, British Columbia. And so I talked a lot about just some of my experiences at Hope, some of the other things at the center of the universe. And of course, there was a lot we didn't get into, like the medicine wheel out at Saskatoon, at Wanaskewin, other different well, we'll just say paranormal experiences I've had. So we kept it kind of a narrow focus if we could. And then, of course, you wanted to go into, I talked a little bit about the rocks here. We have a Slocan Lake, and there's 3-4 communities around it. New Denver, Silverton, Slocan, Roseberry, a few different small communities, like just a couple hundred people around this lake. But across the lake, which was all on fire, which is pretty amazing, is that when you get into this area up here, oh my gosh, that was the direct energy weapon. So you always look below, right? And I'm like, what is going on here? So start talking about this area, and I'll just give it, because I know a lot of people just geographically don't up Google Earth here in a minute. But one of the things in here that's really, really important here, as you can see, is we'll go to Slocan Lake. Oops, can't do that, can we? Oh, some of us know how to do lake. Hold on here. We want to get you a trajectory here, and just let me get this on here. Having some computer freeze ups here. It's just been really wild since we had some interesting, we'll say, power surges. I haven't had computers work properly since. So I'm just going to stop sharing, and we'll try and get that up for you here, because it's just a little bit of we'll say technical issues right now. But anyway, once you get into the Slocan Lake area, there's a lot of Yetis, and we had, as of recent, and I know these people. These are people I've known. They're solid. Not like, had too much to drink or smoke or something one night. But anyway, in here, what was really interesting is that they literally had, and I'll just kind of bring in here and zoom it in here a bit here on this, is that a lot of people don't realize that this is going on in these, quiet little areas, right? I'm like, but they are, people. They really, 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 really are. And so once you, find out what's going on, like I said, it's pretty amazing. Like I said, people don't always get where these are. And I think it's important that we can visually go in here, because that's part of the thing too, is we want to do healing, or as people think grid work and stuff, you need to kind of know where the trajectory is here, because there's so much going on. And especially there are people that are actually in these areas, no clue what's going on. I think that's more to the people sometimes we need to talk to, right, on here. And so one of the things in here, as I'm going to screen share here again. It's probably time. Yeah. Have an idea of what we're talking about. And I think it's really important. So if you guys aren't Google Earth friendly, hopefully you'll start to be, because that allows you to start finding out what's going on. So here's the Google Earth, and hopefully that'll come up properly this time. I mean, the top of the page is basically facing north here. So as we kind of get a trajectory out here. So as we kind of zoom out here, okay, let's just find out where we are for those people that have no clue where we're talking about. Okay, so there we are. Okay, so let's go back. Okay, so there's a lot of people, like I said, they just don't know where some of these areas are that we're talking about. So as we come in here, and do take a look, if you notice here, notice how you're seeing a lot of like green space, forests, boreal forests, all sorts of stuff, being in here. So as you can see, it's basically what people sort of think above Washington, or again, this is what you would define here, everything from Spokane all the way up halfway into here, close to Edmonton in that area. But straight up in Revelstoke is what they call the Sinaitic territory. By the way, they've been declared extinct in there. As we go in a little bit more, we're getting Fernie. You're starting to see all the areas outside Calgary. We talked a little bit about here. We talked about Calgary today. We talked a little bit about Banff, just outside of here. So you'll see some of these come in. You'll see when I talked about Hope and some of these areas, they would be just below sort of Kelowna down in here, closer to the border. So these are the areas, and so what happens here is where the actual areas are. The film as well today, or the video, is because that's where the dam is, and that's where the waters come around each side of the Slocan Valley. I also talked a little bit about Kamloops or Tk'emlúps, where the children were allegedly taken from. And again, not that children haven't gone missing, haven't been abused, as everyone has. It's not limited to any race, color, or creed by any stretch of the imagination. But when we're talking about center of the universe, it's just above here. Lillooet was just above here. And again, the Stargate is closer down here to where you would call Hope, Merritt, this kind of area. So zoom in for just a second, because again, it's important to know where we're kind of talking about. That is all the way down to basically into California. So a lot of people don't realize that, and that's why these areas are so important, right? Because you're coming in here, and as we zoom into some of these areas, you know, it's very important. So you can see how the waterways, and now you can see where Banff National Park is as we come in here. And again, these are the areas that we were really talking about. So just to the west of Cranbrook, now we come into where you can see all this wonderful stuff here, right? So there we go. Now we're getting into the Nelson area, and this is where they have like Shambhala, raves, that kind of thing, kind of like a Bohemian Grove to me, really. But once you start getting into here and just Peachland, Summerlin, Penticton, now you're starting to get into, these are where the fires are in direct energy weapons. No question about it. So this is actually the area where I was sort of really talking a lot about today. And for those people following the famous ostrich case, it's right here, just across from Fouquet. It's actually where the Universal Ostrich Farm and all those poor birds that were injected with thousands of bioweapons, right? You know, it's unfortunately, like sick waterways come around. You know, you get anything in here, we could be seeing lots of floods like they've seen everywhere else here pretty soon. All the hot springs are up here, Nakusp, and all those fun things in here. But the area that we were talking about, and the reason I'm just zeroing in here, because it's really important. You know, there's the castle. We'll be close. We'll the castle over again, hopefully. Nelson's a very, very interesting city in here. A lot of vets and stuff on here. So as you get into these points, it's in these areas that you're seeing the Sinaitic territory. And in here, there's something called Frog's Peak. And as we get into the Winlaw area, there's a little place back in here called Valhalla. And this is a lot where they have original pit houses. And this is where a lot of their creation stories go. But as I moved up here into Lemon Creek, which we've had reports over here of 8 foot tall blue beings sitting over here, walking around in the middle of the night. Not Sasquatches, not men, and not in areas that you can access very easily during the day, let alone at night. And then right across, we're having explosions and houses and people saying they're humming and sonic booms, all sorts of things. So lots of, again, fire. So the area here I was referring to was right across in here. And at Sandon, these are all silver mines. These are actually active. They're trying to shut down. This is one of the few Tesla generators in the world, if you can imagine, at Sandon. And it's been going for almost 100 years. And I mean, a Tesla generator, everything is self-sustainable, right? This is Tartarian knowledge, right? This Slocan Lake, very, very important, because this is where all the fires were, and they had this all blocked off, you know, last July and stuff in here. It was pretty locked down here for about a month or two. But in here, right across in this area, is where it was all ablaze, just totally all on fire. And this is, I just wanted to bring to your attention, is where these rock petroglyphs are, the rock paintings that have been there for thousands of years by the First Nations, just like the Hopi mine prophecy rock. And one of the things that most people don't realize, okay, so Denver, Silverton, this is where it's the home of what's called the Niki. Here you go, the Niki Internment Memorial Center. And the reason why, this is where they interned not only the Japanese in all these villages here along these lakes, they also interned all the Tartarian, Russian, Doukhobor, which is one of the areas from there, kind of like Ukrainians, okay? And some of the highest peaks in the world, which we've been up to in sacred sites in here. So this is where a lot of this stuff is. So this area is huge in gold, silver, copper, and molybdenum, okay? So lots of stuff was reported in here, lots of Sasquatch, lots and lots of sightings have been in here. So very rich in the history in here. So I just wanted to bring it to people's attention here. And so I was talking actually about a little area here called Hope. And Hope here, as you can see, really close down to the border, but this is where I was actually near, and this is where I talked about the Stargates in the area, the direct energy weapons, the fires, the people, dogs, all sorts of things, more into the back end of here, which is called Silver Creek. So just that you a little bit of what was going on, where we were, and you can see the beauty of the maps and stuff in here too, that, you know, a lot of people would want to go. We're frozen, we're back. I know, it's just terrible. This thing's just locking up. And I tell you, ever since we got these power surges and kind of weaponry and stuff, and my computer just hasn't worked properly since. So we'll have to work on that this week. So anyway, I don't know if you guys have got any questions, but I really wanted to share some of that. So I want to go through just a little bit. Hopefully we'll get in here. And oh, nice to see Sam's in here. Hi, Karen. Just found you through Danny's show. And I was just talking about it. So this is really great. So no what you be. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about today. And like I said, for people, if you're not in my Facebook or my Twitter or Telegrams, that sort of thing, really important that, you know, we know what's going on in here. And Sam says, oh, greetings from Alberta. Whereabouts? What are you close to in Alberta? We're just showing the map there. So one of the things, as I grew up in Saskatoon, I spent a lot of time actually covering Calgary and Edmonton, and also going into Grand Prairie, because I was the Western Canadian rep actually for the Body, Soul, Spirit Expo. So I used to be like for 10 years gallivanting all over the point there. And of course, Edmonton's really interesting. Did you know my father, Glenn McDonald, actually, he was raised in Edmonton, actually. So I have an Edmonton connection there. And there's some amazing people. I used to go up there and meet with Renee Hamilton. A lot of people that were into the quantum healing were up there. You had a gorgeous restaurant. I used to meet with David Wolf up there. It's called Nourish. Oh, I used to love Nourish. One of the few raw superfoods, kind of like what you have in Calgary with the Light Cellar. And of course, one of the most brilliant women, if you don't know her, there's a couple people there, is Sherry Strong. Sherry Strong is amazing. She does Genius Biofeedback, but she does live blood cell. And she does a lot of stuff to do with holistic and freedom from sugar. But yeah, there's amazing people. And of course, just north of Sherwood Park and stuff in there is this cute little thing on here. And you guys would know this. But anyway, Sean Buckley, my cousin, is actually in St. Albert. So if you're into the Natural Health Protection Association and stopping things like the injections and stuff like that, Sean Buckley has been always out of there with the natural health protection, and he's the one that started up the Canadian Citizens Inquiry. He's left that since, but he's been very busy. And so that's the whole kind of Edmonton. And just outside of Edmonton is a great little place. And you know what the Pasanka is? You know where the Ukrainian Easter egg is, right? And so if you go in here, I used to go and I would take my children up that way. And also in Edmonton is a huge theme park, is the West Edmonton Mall. So you know, if you wanted to have some fun, there was lots of stuff to do. But I used to teach, and I spent a week or so out there at a little place called Lavoy, which is in the middle of nowhere before the Ukrainian Easter egg there, right? And so as you get into there, it was a great little place, started up called Fresh Start Retreat. And it was one of the first holistic, all raw food, colonics, enemas. I did them all up there. It's pretty amazing. So in here, unfortunately, they're the only thing we have, one of the few places in, as you think, Canada, is out at Courtney Comox on the island. So I just spent some time with it. But, you know, these are where, you know, a lot of people are paying like, you know, $800 to $1,000 a day. And I just, you know, it's out of the reach of most people. And so a lot of times what I do is I coordinate with therapists maybe in your area. We find someone that can do not only biofeedback, I can do biofeedback in the world. The consults could be anywhere in the world. But what we can do sometimes, if you want to follow it up with who's the colon hydrotherapist in your area, who is your live blood cell microscopist in the area, we can coordinate with that and do a multidisciplinary team approach for you. So I think it's amazing in here. And so one of the best things that, you know, I've ever seen is coming across some of this information. And I will put some of those links there. We put them below Danny's show today, but I want to reach out and do that. And we'll talk a little bit about that. because I actually see that people are very interested in this. I think people are hungry for the information. Everyone's been like led down this little path, you know, med beds, right? You have to make your own home, your own therapeutic spa wellness center. And that's really what I've come to. You know, we can basically almost replicate a lot of that stuff. And I'll show you how easily it's done, because it's really not difficult to do. So one of the things in here we'll talk about, and Eduardo's here. I'm just going to read for a sec. I've heard of you through Rob Khalil. That's right. And that's a typical skeptic. So I tend to go on there probably every 3-4 months. Rob invites me, and Rob's always chit-chatting back and forth with me because he wants information. So we chit back, you know, every couple of weeks. And you thought the information was great. Number one love, great. And then Sam, I'll talk a little bit about this. That, you know, you're mentioning that you have been, that's funny, is they talk about the show Typical Skeptic with Rob Khalil. Now she's got a skeptical husband. Okay. But anyway, we'll talk a little bit about that, because you're mentioning, and I have to watch the word so I can keep that. I already have a few strikes on this poor channel. And I do have a Rumble backup occasionally, but on this. But we'll talk about your stage 4 breast CA is what we call it in the medical field. And for those people that don't know, I have been in the medical and nursing field for over 43 years. So I started my nursing career back in like 84. Okay. So I've been at it a long time. And I will say most of it, probably the 20, 30 years for sure, into the holistic naturopathic part of it. So it really allows me to look at it from a complementary alternative medical point of view or integrative. And so one of the things in here, nope, you're not going to have any problem with strikes. I can watch my language. I'm pretty good at it right now. And I think one of the things too, so if you're a nurse or an LPN or RN or something like that, I'll speak in a little bit of that lingo so that you guys can follow that. But one of the things I want to do, I just want to touch on the show that we did there, definitely with Danny, because it's really important that I think people see how, you know, the disclosure, it's bird of feather flock together, because I think it's absolutely amazing. And we have someone in here, John. I follow Danny's channel, and you lived in Martinsville during the Sterling incident. Okay, so I want you to, I'm still in touch with Claudia Bryden every week. We have not quit since that. So there may have been a lot of things that happened and they squashed, and only one out of 170 little charges got through. We have not quit. Okay, we were looking after a lot of people, and a lot of people have come through and approached us. So we've been trying to help them and get them on some sort of recovery. So it was a huge thing. So if you actually go to Facebook, if you are on Facebook, John, I encourage you to go look at Claudia Bryden's channel. Okay. So anyway, I think it's really important. I actually happened to, through my experiences in Saskatoon, I've only been back out here visiting and on tour for, on this journey, this part here in the Okanagan and Sinaiaks for the last couple of years, but I am very aware of what's going on in that area all the time. I talk to people all the time in there. And I think that's really important, that we need to come together, because a lot of us have been at this a long time. We kept all our files. We have all the information, and it's more important to me that this stuff gets in, it gets disclosed. And, you know, like I said, there's no limitations on a lot of this stuff. There's no statute of limitations. So take a look. Some of the stuff is being revealed here, and we're all doing it, you know. I have a wonderful story about Claudia Bryden, but if I can get her one day, besides behind the scenes, I'd like to have it. I told her, I said, I prayed you into existence. I literally did. I was praying for someone to help me with the child protection, to stop the child trafficking, the child abuse, and everything that I knew about at that time. And if I didn't meet that woman, literally 4 hours later in the Besborough pool in Saskatoon. So we've been, and that was like 10 years later. So there was a lot of things that we didn't realize parallel, you know. I mean, you know, things are going on, but you know, it wasn't my zoo at the time, or my monkey. They certainly, at that time, they weren't my children, right? But again, it was happening all over the place. It certainly wasn't isolated there. And who would to know, you know, I'd be meeting people writing books about this stuff later. So one of the things as well in here, I just want to skip over to Danny's channel. And I really want to thank you guys for reaching out, because, you know, I am seeing people. I mean, I've already had about 50 calls already, which I will get to. And one of the things in here will be so that if people want to have a session, they have questions, and some of them are just really simple questions. I kind of just skip through some stuff quickly. But if you have some questions, or if you want a session, or you want the links on playing with it yourself, I have no problem. I'm happy to give those links out, you know, on there. If you want to get a quanta capsule, give me your email. I'll put it to mine. So I'll put it in here shortly. Well, I'll do it now too. It's Clan Mother with a K, because otherwise there's a Clan Mother with a C, by the way. She has to forward all my email. But if you can go with the Clan Mother 13, send me an email, send me yours, and then I will send you something that you can use at home. Actually, I will even do a session for some people, and you can listen to it for a week. So we've got all sorts of things, from whatever you want to do, gift, barter, donate, free. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there. So I think that's really important that you guys can go in there. So I think it's amazing. And so one of the things in here, as my computer does not want to work and doesn't want to share anymore like screens, I guess we're just going to talk here. One of the things on here that I think is amazing is what people are going through. So seeing as it won't let me talk, and you guys all saw the thing, I'm going to just put the link for those people that didn't see it today, because it's really important, like I said, to take a look at this, or to look at Danny's channel, or to see how we're trying to coordinate with people here, because, you know, how else are people going to learn, you know? And this is one of the things here. So, oh, thank you, Sam. Added me on Facebook, as you had mentioned. It'll probably take me a couple days, because Facebook has got this new rule for me. I can only talk to 4 people and add 4 people on a day. Isn't that wonderful? So even though I've got 3 or 4 accounts that they haven't all caught up with, I can only talk to so many people a day, which is not fun. But I will get you, I will add it in. And there's a Kieran M. McDonald and a K.A. Lucyk, which I can't share apparently either, because everything's locking my computers on. So let's just talk about something, okay? One of the things, and I am going to put something in here. I just did a really great show with Mike Human, and I did another show with Solana. And these are actually shows that are on my albums I talked about. If you go to my shows, or you go in and take a look specifically, I'm going to show you quickly the drill down. So let's say, and I will give you kind of like, not a pretend, I'm actually going to do me, but we could pretend it was you, Sam, for example, okay? We'll just use that as an example. Almost every client that I come in contact with, and I can't mention these things, but you can probably see what this says, right? It means the power or potential of hydrogen. In other words, that tells me how powerful you are. If you want to know more information, you can get these strips. And this is what they measure right there. These are the most important things that someone can do at home. These are what you refer to as, every time I talk about any importance, anything that's important, it's locking up these days. It's like the AI has invaded my thing. They are very simple strips. You just pee on them first thing in the morning. They're not rocket science. Most people with any disease are going to be over here. Okay, that's the degree of acidity. We need to move you all the way to basically here. And that could be a long trip. So if you think from chakras, look where you're moving from. Okay, it's like people in 3D. You got to move them into 4, into 5, into almost 60. So I always said this is almost like the chakra thing. So if you went this way, think about it this way, that would be like your chakra chart. Very, very important. If you want more information, this is the stuff to do with the ketones, nitric acid, blood, sugars, that kind of thing. So very, very important. Okay. And one of the reasons we talk about is that people become the negative energy, the Wi-Fi, everything else, parasites, injections, whatever it is, anything negative usually attacks the body. Our system goes into a fight or flight response, and that translates into acidity. And so you need to balance that. So normal is, as I said, way back here, about 7.5, getting into 8. And so what we want to do is some people, we get them onto baking soda water. You know, did you know baking soda is actually, I got to watch this one, but the bicarb is about 10,000 times more powerful than any oncological drip called chemo. So one of the things in there is, I think that's the most important thing that you can do. I always start with people there. I ask them, you know, how is this going? What are you doing? They are very simple, and these are not the rifes where you hold on, because most people have got too much stuff in them. I don't want any kind of electrical magnetic currents going through people's bodies these days. And a lot of people can't take it. It's usually about half to actually probably 1 teaspoon twice a day with lemon. And then what you can do is add about half a cup to a cup of water with a little bit of maple syrup. So no one should be drinking it straight. It's not pleasant. And so again, I would use about close to 3/4 of a teaspoon. You might need it once, but most people I find need it twice a day. Okay. that doesn't work for everyone, because there are some people that are literally, can you imagine, allergic to it. They can't have it in an enema. They can't have it in the bathtub. They certainly cannot drink it or put it into what's called bicarb veggie caps. So I have got a supplier, and you can call them. I'm going to put it here because I'm not going to list it, but Suede Hills. Okay. So if you get a hold of them and you talk to this woman here that I'm typing in the chat room, go get a hold of her and you ask about these kind of a pill, right? And it's called It's Easy. And you tell her that you know me, and then you're going to get stuff. Because why are we doing those pills? Because they are based on food. And I've always found that when you don't not take supplements and you do it in a food base, it's assimilable. So these are basically all the minerals, and the alkaline minerals are put into her secret little formula that, just like Kentucky Fried Chicken, she won't give me. Even though we're friends, she won't give me that recipe. Even though she's about to shut down, she still won't give me the recipe. But in there, it's basically, she's got it in mixed with alfalfa, stevia, and things like that, and olive leaf, and all sorts of great things. So you'll see the rest of the stuff, but you will not see those pills unless you phone her, tell her you know Karen, and then you'll get some help there. Okay. So in here, basically, these are simple rifes. I could simply go into, if someone had your conditioner, I could just put in breast or whatever else I want, and you'll see tons and tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of stuff. Okay. And all you have to do is pick out some of them. We could pick out acidity, stuff like this. You put your timer to however many seconds you want, and away you go. And with you, they're always designed to be used with what's called headphones. That's what these are. They're called headphones. Okay. Headphones go around you and run this sound wave ultrasound through you. They can also go around a glass of water. Okay, and you can drink your water for the day and use it in enemas and stuff like that. So as you can see, very, 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 very important to be doing this. So it may have one frequency, or in this case, hard to see. It's got 10. That's what this thing is way on the other side. It says 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, and then it will keep going. Okay, so those are something that was really very simple. I love this, okay? So yes, we can use tuning forks, okay? And yes, if you go to my Facebook, you're going to see probably 60 different things on tuning forks, including Eileen McKezik's, including everyone else, like Pure Frequencies. You'll see Reese Thomas stuff. You'll see David Hickey stuff. I've been on tour with that man. That guy goes across one end of Canada to the other. Spent 64 days and 60 tours this summer. David Hickey with Crystal Journey. There is a lot of stuff to be in here, right? And here's the tuning fork. Okay, I don't care if you get 432 or 128. You do not have this fork, does not match in here exactly for the actual tumor, virus, or as I said earlier, any of the different things in here. So we have all the codes. I can go to whatever disease you want and pick up a whole page and all these little pages of codes. You can see how fun they are. Oh, look at all the bacteria and look at the stuff for whatever condition you want is in here. So we've already done that. We've spent 30 years being code breakers, right? So we're making an antidote. So if something vibrates at a certain frequency, you might need this, you might need this, and you might need this. And maybe those are the three best remedies based on your biofield, your biochemistry, everything. But there's no one answer for everything. And just like this, we would be using this every day for close to half an hour in the morning and half an hour in the evening. And so am I located in Alberta? No, but I cover everywhere. I'm international. I'm worldwide. Phone me, email me. I will see you on Zoom, FaceTime, Telegram, or whatever else, Google Hangouts. Wherever I can get a camera, I will. You don't need to have an actual clinic. And I will tell you, most people do not get in, even in this center. And I'm setting up and moving actually in a few weeks, is that I bet you less than 12 people have been here in a couple of years. Okay, because I scan people first. I'm very sensitive to what's coming off to being transmitted or shed. So in here, I prefer to actually do home calls. And the reason why is doing house calls like this, I can see your cupboards, I can see your living environment. And that's the most important thing, is that your conditions arose in your environment, not in mine. So I would rather go in and do house calls for you. Okay. And Zoom is perfect. I go into people's bathrooms. I look at cleaners. I look at bedding. We go tell them because they might not know if they got a smart meter. So we go outside and we look at their meters this way. I walk with you that way. And virtual medicine has got a lot of, pluses to it. I can basically guide you from anything. So if I wanted to guide you through colon hydrotherapy or an enema or how to make a Kalima board, which almost no one knows what that is, but that's fine. Kalima boards have got just about as much pressure as a colonic machine. So for what you pay for 2-3 colonics, I can show you how to make a Kalima board at home, or at least get you a $10 enema bag and get you on your way. There are way too many things in here. But what I talked about and what I forgot to talk about on Danny, so I'm going to talk about it now before I forget. This is something called a neurovisor. This is something that we're doing with sound headphones. And we've got 100 and some programs in here. But this time you're getting light. And this light is a flicker technology at 40 hertz. And this is not real bad LEDs that's going to hurt you. What we're actually finding right now is that these LEDs and stuff like that are basically, they're doing a flicker technology and they are decalcifying the third eye. Guess what? People that are having dementia, brain fog, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress, it's going away. And, they were doing like 11 minutes and that's it. And in a month, we had people with Alzheimer's and dementia getting their brains back. Can you imagine that? So I don't mind having a little bit of, the lesser of whatever we have to do here. The other thing that we do a lot of is these plates. Get a hold of me. I know where the supplier is. I can save people like $300-$400 for these. It's amazing. But I have many different, these are called multi-wave oscillator plates. In other words, they're kind of like a Tesla coil. So I could put on my glass of water. And just like that, you've heard about replicator technology. Well, this is it. So let's say I didn't want to pay for this. I could basically infuse the frequency into here. So it's like having, energized water. So there again, that's another thing that we can do. So let's go on and we'll play a few tunes. So even though I do my voice, and this is going to be for me, you're still going to get the tones because I can still bring those things for whatever condition you got. So I remember doing, don't laugh, I was asked on to Charlie Ward's show by a guy from Kelowna. His name was Dean Musar. He was otherwise known as Patriot Parabellum. I was invited on Nicholas Vienneman, right? So, but what happened is a lot of stuff, as you heard what I was talking a little bit about with James Rinks and stuff, and where I have a problem with people that are giving out, basically prescribing or dispensing medication, not only without a license, but these people have never been trained in herbology or medicine or pharmacology, and they sure as hell didn't ask the list of what someone was on when I talk with people, because it's important. Did you have surgeries? Do you have mercury fills? All these things are important. Now, the great thing that we came into here is that we've got these great things that are out that basically you can try out for a week or two. I think they're so cool. You just put your voice in and it records the voice. And then basically you start playing with these things. And as you record your voice, it starts going, we usually do the vowels A, E, I, O, U, or, the alphabet or something very simple. But A, E, I, O, U correlates to the Platonic solids and the whole Chinese medicine. And there's a certain reason why we use the sacred vowels. But once you've done that, you upload your voice basically, and then you pick whatever category you want to do and you play. And so it's not rocket science, but it is. And so this is the newest one. I just love it. Just came out here. I don't know if you can see well enough, but it says all you do is you put your voice in and then you take a picture. And guess what? It says, send it to me. That's me. That's Karen. And you can scan it. And once you put your voice in here and you just tap to record, so it's recording your voice. And I can say, hi, this is Karen, A-E-I-O-U, A-E-I-O-U, A-E-I-O-U. And it's just doing this for 15 seconds. So it's getting a record. And now similar to muscle testing, kind of like kinesiology, much more fun than pendulums because it's more accurate. It tells me what the fast fornate is. Hard to see here, but there's your, I don't know if you guys can see here. It's called fast fornate. So A is between a certain, level, E is between a certain level. And from there, it gives us an assessment and it will go against whatever the therapist had. So I could upload my picture and then I go to the, libraries and stuff like that. And you will always, if you use it, I can then give a playlist and people can listen to it for a week. But here's one, for example, let's say I wanted to add all the different frequencies in. And then I could be playing the frequencies of the, similar to Rife codes, but frequency medicine, the sound medicine. And you could be listening to this and putting your water on this and putting your crystals on this and doing all sorts of stuff. Once you imprint water, by the way, where can we use this? Enemas, colonics, bathtub, drinking. And you heard me talk about yoni steams or vaginal steams, or for men, a pelvic floor steam. But this is where we've come to. And I think this is like the coolest stuff. I've been doing this for 30 years, and there's a reason why that we did that. So what I would do is, if you send me your email, I will add you on here and I will send you that quanta capsule to try. It's not rocket science. If you don't want to do that, that's okay. I talked about the biofeedbackvoice.com that we launched. Or as I was showing you a little bit of this stuff here with what we were talking about with Danny, basically what you do is you just go into here and you're going to put the same thing in here. And I'm just showing you because I want you to think this is not techie. You do not have to be medical. Most of these go into grandmother's hands. So I'm just going to do me. But simply all you do is you record the voice again. And again, I talked about, this is called a trivector volts amp resistance. And that's what you call quantum computing. It's called a tricorder, like in Star Trek. Hello, it's a tricorder. Okay, so we're not doing a binary computer. This is specialized computers. It may look simple. We're using on that public system, but it's not. And so once we get the voice in and do the picture, then we kind of like test it against what every therapist has. And every therapist is different. We give you always 30 things to go playing with and shopping with. So you will know the best Bach flowers and the best herbology and what mineral is low and what vitamin is low and blah, blah, blah. And what do you need to bring your system back into an ultimate balance. And if people want, optionally, it's got an artificial AI. No, it's got an artifact information in it, right? So it's giving ancient information. And if you want to match up some stuff and say, do you think my aura kind of looks like, it will tell you. So all you're doing is you're seeing me push one button, and within seconds, I'll know the minerals and the vitamins. And then if you want to have therapy, I'm not saying you have to. Let's say if you just want to know what it is and not do therapy because people don't trust sounds or machines, well, at least you know from the list what you can go shopping with. So with one button, that's it. So I could just go in and see what minerals, what vitamins I need, and never even do the therapy. You could just do it like a scale and look at it like, a mood ring here. If you want to just know what kind of a mood you're in, that's what you're doing, with the mood rings, right? That's exactly what it is. It's reading the energy of the biorhythm. And again, these crystals are allowing us to do that. So within seconds, you can look at the aura, you can look at then the biofield, and then you can look at the acupuncture meridians, and maybe you have a blocked acupuncture meridian. So if someone thought they had something, oh my gosh, right? If you thought you had something, and I will tell you, everything is a misdiagnosis unless you're hit by a car. Virtually everything is. And I have found that after 40 years, right? So was I outside? I was. Am I in front of a computer? Yes. You can see the outside is kind of like, by the way, iridology or live blood cell, if you know how to read those. Okay. And then, actually pretty white. There's a lot of purple in there, but there's a little bit of gray up in here, and that's just stuff coming down. So does someone have a headache? Is there too much EMF? Did I go outside and breathe too many chemtrails? Did I forgot I put my, air tamer here, but I didn't put it here? All those things in there. But at least that's not too bad, And sometimes what's really cool, when I broke my knee, for example, when I broke my knee here, it actually went all dark brown. So you'll see a lot of things that are dead energy or things that are not moving in here. And then let's say in your case, Sam, I wanted to go see what was going on here. So what goes underneath the breast meridian? You're going to go look for, guess what? The acupuncture meridian connected to that, right? So we're going to look at the templating a little bit different. And maybe, like in most cases, same thing with me, you may have eaten something and your stomach's going, and you're too acidic. Well, then we're going to go see what the problem is. So how about if we just went like this and sticking people with acupuncture meridians? So there's something that we could do within seconds. And so I just wanted to show you where the potential is, on this. And so these are really cool. Like I said, we went from, and I still have them where I have the very big equipment, right? That you haul around and hook everyone up. I still have them. It's not that I don't. After $50,000, I'm not throwing it out. But this is quicker and faster. And we've come a long way in 30 years of biofeedback. Okay. So that's all I've got to say is a lot of the technology and the software is compatible with iPads and phones these days. So that's something that you might want to look into. So I agree with you. Thank you for sending your info. I'd be happy to help you. It's very cool. You've always wanted to know what your aura looked like. Well, now you do. And like I said, it's not a problem. Either you can do it or I can do it, or we can both do it. Or, like I said, if you want to do it, I will give you the link to where I'm working with them, because I think it's really important that people look after themselves, or at least if you're not scared about it, or you want to know about the biofeedback, or you want to look at the book, I've got a little manual you can put in there. And it's very simple. Like I said, most people, I bet you're using it. I'd say the majority are women in their probably 50s to 80, because they're looking after their children and grandchildren from a distance. So now grandmothers and clan mothers, women have got power, and the fathers and the grandfathers, right? And they're doing their children from a distance. So it's another form of prayer as far as I'm concerned these days. So those are some of the things that you might want to take a look at in there. And so this might be very, very helpful for you guys, right? As we take a look at it. So I'm going to put that link in there. So if it's something you want to jump in and take a look at, you're welcome to take a look at that. And I think the other one I mentioned coming up that they're just launching, I didn't get a full complete reading, but I can give you the links anyway. Just starting to play with that. I think they're still tuning it up a bit, but there are things like that available. So anyway, but I really like the one at Insight Health Apps, because all those like things I showed you, like BioVibe and Rife, that comes from the Insight Health app company, on there. And, I talk to them probably every week, on there, because a lot of people are in there. I mentor a lot of therapists, or we just had a really rough case. We've had a bunch of animals, in there. I was just doing, oh my gosh, a kitty cat, Zorro in Florida. And I was just actually doing some dogs down here in the valley, right? Because they're picking up the same symptoms a lot as the people that they live with. So I think it's really important in there. And that's one of the things, like, as long as you do, and you could skip the voice. A lot of times, I get called to go to the hospital. So I do hospital calls now, but we go on the phone, or we do FaceTime or something like that. So I make hospital calls that way. So there isn't anywhere we basically can't go virtually. As long as you have a communication tool, that's how we work. So I don't know if you guys have any questions. I'm happy to answer them. And it's great in there. And turn it off. Can I pronounce that right? It's like Tanya almost, but tennis toe off. And anyway, it was an amazing show. Thank you. It actually was a lot of fun to do. And Soleil Renonat, very cool. What was the thing? Oh, baking soda with the lemon together. Yeah. So that's one of the things in there, in there. There's also something to keep your energy up if you're not, ill with looking at, let's say, some people react to lemon or limes, right? So there's things called master cleansers, taking 1 or 2 glasses a day of lemon or limeade, in there. But like I said, it's always really important in there. Sam says, Karen, you're such an interesting person. Thanks, non-persona. But I will have to go back and watch the old videos with Rob now. Yeah, I think there was one we did, the first one. I think it was January 1st, actually. He wanted me to be there to kick off his new year on someone's calendar. Anyway, I think that was the last one. Been talking to him though. One of the things in there that I think is really important, right? And these are things too, like, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. These are things too that I see within these communities. People have got a lot of addictions. They need to be looked after, and it's easier to look at other methodologies, right, than always looking in the mirror and seeing what we need to deal with, right? I think this is really hard for some people here. And Rachel's got a question. There are so many tuning forks on Amazon's. Which would I choose to buy? I don't know if I mentioned or if you heard, but on my Facebook, are you on Facebook? So let me know, Rachel, if you're on Facebook, because one of the things I have on Facebook is my albums, and I will give you the albums in here. And the reason why in the albums is I've got like hundreds, thousands of pictures and stuff. But one of the categories that I have under my albums, so I'm going to give you my albums for everyone here first. And then you could go, what does she have? It's like going to Karen's library. It's like going to better than the Vatican, right? I'm going to give you those libraries in here. Oh, it's Tanya, like, oh, Montana. Perfect. Okay, thank you for correcting me. on here. One of the other things too is let's go look. I would love to share, but this computer's, I don't know, ever since it got fried on the last power surge. I don't think anyone's blew up but mine, but that's okay. On here, I did a whole thing called tuning forks, and I will set that in here for you. One of the things that's really important, I think, with tuning forks is to know that there are many different types and there are qualities. And I have used some actually off Amazon and they have been fine. A lot of them will have like little keyholes in here. Okay, so you can get like a little thing that tunes it up, tightens it up. And you can get actually apps on your phone that are used for music or Metatrons and stuff like that. And so you can actually hit this, play it, and then put it up to the phone and it will tell you if it's right on or not. But this, for example, is called an Auto 128C. Okay, and you can see it's got weights on it. That's why they call them weighted. Okay, and again, as you move them up and down, they're going to change. But this is referred to as a 128C. These are used for, so you can see it vibrating, right? That's how fast it's going. It's going 128 times there. And so what happens is it vibrates down here so that when you go on the actual physical part of wherever you want, it's vibrating down versus these tines, right? The tuning, the tines, when they get hit, that, for example, is 528. That's me. It's also about you tuning. It should be your voice. So whatever you hear on here, like me, you're supposed to be singing with them. I don't know if you guys know that. You should be humming or singing or chanting or something, whatever word you want, with them, because those are really, really important. Okay, so there's some stuff here. It's I don't think you have to be paying $222 or $333 for things that slide up and down. There are things that you can attach. There are crystals that you can attach. But I think if you look at my media set there on the tuning forks, you're going to be like blown. Because I've taken, like I said, hundreds of different sites, YouTubes, suppliers all over, and how to start working with these different ones here. Because all of them, like I said, you know, a lot of people just are not aware of what's out there. But I think it's important that people, you know, get to look at this stuff, you know. And one of the things, let's say, for everything in here is people start learning. You know, I've got 24 videos here and sites alone for suppliers. And I'm not trying to overwhelm you. I'm trying to give you some of the stuff that I found, I looked at, I liked, and I think it's important to go take a peek at it. So one of the funds in here, and I don't think that's the worst picture of me. Danny didn't like it, but I've had worse pictures. Today's a bad hair day. You know, as you're out cleaning and doing things and walking around, it's the way it goes. But in here, yeah, it's just not going to let me screen share today. So one of the things, if you take a look at that tuning fork, what you're going to see in here is how to use them, but also it's what books to look at, because I've got probably easily over a dozen books just on tuning, fascia, forks, something called vibrational raindrop. And those people that have done essential oils and know what I'm talking about, where you use a whole bunch of essential oils and we put it along head to toe, or, you know, abdominal or feet or whatever you want to do, but essential oils and then castor oil hot towels, then you can apply the forks as well. So tuning forks go in, and like anything else, the more alkaline you are in that pH I talked about, the better the biofeedback works, the better the forks work, the better everything works. The more alkaline you are, when I put essential oils on, guess what? The more you absorb. Okay, because right now what we're fighting is something called that plaque and biofilm in here. And so a lot of times what I do is I make up my own essential oils. Okay, and I work with top suppliers. Canada, it's like Navessence. It might be Navessence is out of Banff in Alberta there. I think he's gone to Diamond Valley, Black Diamond down there below Bragg's. But in there, we've also got Key Aroma Shop on the island. We also have Essential Aura on the island. And then down the States and in Canada, there's something called New Directions outside of Young Living, doTERRA and stuff like that. But as long as they're edible, which means they're organic or they're therapeutic, one of the two. I just threw 40 oils in here. Okay, so I have oils everywhere. They're in the kitchen, they're in the bathroom, they're in the bedroom, they're everywhere, because I might want to take them in a capsule, or they're going on every day, every day. Okay. And they can go through the hair. They can go out to the ears. And when I'm doing this, by the way, I can actually feel the tingling, like what you think piloerection. I can feel goosebumps all the way down. And I will have that with colonics. I will have it also with this. And I will also have it when you start thinking about piloerection. And you start thinking, and you'll start seeing my goosebumps. Like every hair is attenuated. So that's how I did fire walking. It's mind is matter. You're starting to command, right, your environment. And I think that's a really important thing. So those are some of the things I thought might be helpful for you guys. And if you have any questions, certainly get a hold of me, because I'm sure a lot of people do. And so those will be some of the things that, I think are the easiest and probably one of the best things to look at. If you also want to go back, I did a whole show, I think probably in fall time, maybe about 6 months ago, on tuning forks. So I also have one of these Frequency Fridays on the tuning forks as well, which I think is important, because I don't think one individual has it. I don't think the money, when I start thinking people are charging $1,000 to $3,000 to become a sound therapist, I almost want to hit my head against the wall. These are things that should be passed down, just like information or biofeedback. Most of the stuff I show people is because I found it for free. I would be very great at it when I learned how to go off the grid, right? Use money. I had to barter and figure out where things were free for a while. Or when I was asked to go up, because I'm not native, I'm not Aboriginal, but when I was asked to go onto the reservations of different, groups in here, the Cree Nations and the Muskeg or wherever it was, or where these corporate, people that were rounded up here. When I went out there, a lot of people don't have any money. So you have to learn how to work with Epsom salts and soda water and all sorts of stuff, and get creative and get, different capsules, and we would make up our own pills here like that. That's what I'm saying, so I don't get taken off the air. But these are really, really important, right? And I talked also today, to Danny a little bit about wearing basically copper air, not just wearing copper, but there's different types of copper you should be using, triple stranded stuff. So not just wearing a copper bracelet is going to do it, things like that, because otherwise you can have things come into your field and just stagnate here. And I don't want all that negative energy and 5G and 6G and direct energy, whatever's coming in and sitting that close even to me, to be kind of shielded, because some of them are an attractant as well. And you need to do certain things, even with these kind of bracelets, so that it gets sent back out. Those are things that Tony Pantalleresco does. So they're a little different than the tensor rings and slim spirling stuff. So those are some of the things I wanted to get into. And I've just did some amazing stuff. Let's say with, I just met with Maureen Walton. This woman's incredible. She's got all the different frequencies and to do with the women in the wombs times and parthenogenetics that's connected to the Anastasia and Ringing Cedars of Russia, and all the things that she's been coming across. This is reestablishing the matriarchy. Like I said, there's so many, people. I've just met the coolest people lately. Even since this show, can you imagine? It's only been a couple hours since that aired. I had someone call me already from close to down the valley, 20 minutes away. He says, I think I live close to you. I'm going to tell you some more information. This is what I've done. Oh, by the way, I did some shows, by the way. It wasn't with Danny, but I did some shows with Elena Denan and blah, blah, blah. So like I said, people are coming in. We're hungry for that information right now. And we need to get out and share some of that information. And if a little bit of what I've got helps you, I am so glad for that, because this is what we need to do, and get the information out to the people that you care about. Okay. And this is one reason, like I said, I think if I can remote to you and I can remote to ostriches and dogs and cats, I can't remote to my children as well, right? There are certain things people need. And as I said, there's a way to help put that energy. It's not the devices. They're not artificial. It creates another communication line between you and that individual. And you're actually coming in with the two biofields, and you're checking to see. When I'm checking with biofeedback with sound, you're checking everything you've kind of accumulated to now, right? Because you don't know what's sitting in here from childhood, or, so-and-so coughed up with me, and then so-and-so came from this and whatever else. You don't know what's hanging out there. It may not be physically in your avatar, it could be sitting out here. And that's where the advantage comes. And that's because we cannot look at the system completely with microscopes, okay, or x-rays, or there's a place for everything for the most part. It's just how you deal with it. But I want to thank you for joining me. I mean, I really appreciate it. And we will be, I'm going to be like all over touring in the next little while. So hopefully what we're going to do, and I hope to have internet, so we'll be on for the next couple Fridays. And if you have any questions, feel free to get a hold of me. I would really appreciate it. I'd love to talk to people. That's how we heal, is this communication. And I think we've got this in our hands. We need the power to use it. And so Rachel says, I'm extremely grateful for you. Because of you, I never took the clot shot. Much love. Very important, right? It's hard when I talk to people about that. I said, I knew about this. Do you know what when I saw one of those clot shot reactions, do you know how old I was? I was probably about 5 years old. And my brother was given one when he wasn't supposed to. Actually, the pediatrician was told not to do it by my mother because he was ill and had a fever, and they gave it to him. My brother ended up for 3 weeks in a croup tent, oxygen, and seizure in his little brains out, which might explain some of his issues today. But that was the first time I had a total cognitive awareness that they were dangerous from the time I was 5. And so when I had my children, even as a nurse, as I said today, even despite all the things, I was at the lawyers, the doctors, the pediatricians, the public health nurses, and at the school with letters. And those letters said, I don't take fiat currency. You do this, I'm going after your gold, and I'm not stopping until I get you all individually. So as I said, that was how adamant I was. Get this, basically 25 years ago, right? And a lot of people, even back then, Dr. Len Horowitz, I was his rep, right? Neil Miller, all that stuff. I knew that so long ago intrinsically, right? And I knew when they were coming in with Health Canada. I was there as a holistic nurse to try and stop when Health Canada came in, and went to all the Aboriginal nursing schools and started getting them to inoculate their own, to cyber inject all the rest of their communities. I was devastated, absolutely devastated that day. Couldn't get through to them. I said, this is your tribal medicine. We're trying to bring you back your tribal herbs. Don't you know, instead of the ivermectin horse paste that you can give like wormwood, you can give clove, you can give artemisia. We can go get your muskeg from Muskeg Lake here. It's right at your, it's at your lake, all this stuff, right? So even if you're foraging, but nope, that is that mind control that you can't get out of that. And so it's really, really hard. There's nothing you can do when people are hell-bent on doing this to themselves. And part of the thing is you got to remember is it's still continuing to slough off and shed. You think secondary smoke is bad? Right? Oh my gosh. I mean, this is so much worse. And so it's devastating to watch what it was. And even when my father was given it in the nursing home, he went in for a hip surgery and then recouping in the nursing home. But that's what they did. They gave it to him. I guess he ended up in the hospital. And, there was no way I would go into the hospital. There was no way I would go in and watch that. I won't watch the death ritual. I don't want to see the torture. I heard how these guys were in their last couple hours, right? And that brings me into the whole bullshit of what you called mad down the states are made up here. Okay. And these are injections that are given. They paralyze them. If they weren't paralyzed, they would be yelling and screaming and burning and seizuring all over that table. Don't think that this is a nice way to go about, because it's evil. It's beyond evil. You are so tortured and burning and drowning with what's called waterboarding. I could talk to nurses and LPNs here, and they have no clue. They have no clue because they haven't looked at the injections, they haven't looked at the amounts, and they don't look at what it's doing in the succession that they're doing it in. They should be literally all charged as well for crimes against, the nations, right? This is acts of war. And I'm the first one to say that. This is just, there's no excuse for stupidity. And literally, I've always said, people go, you're so bright, you're so whatever, blah, blah, blah. I said, I got to grade 6. I can read. I did my reading. And, even as a neonatal nurse, I had to go back and look at what they were doing with the 4 injections. And I went, are you not horrified? How could anyone in palliative care all these years do that? I saw a couple clients and they're like, what happened? They were totally fine until they went into there because they talked them into it. There you go. It's the first injection, the second injection, and there you go. Right? So we need to be very, very aware of that. And so as I said, I've been very blessed in that field. I've been very adamant, and I've been out at these things for like 20, 30 years in the environment. And at some point, and I had clinics and I had staff under me and I had viable places. And then at some point, you know, with children, it's like, no, we got to go as mothers and we got to have established, you know, just like my Baba did when they first came here, like a homestead. They have to, I don't care if it's a root cellar or a sod house or it's an airship or wherever we're going to go. It's very, very, you know, we're coming almost back to really what my great grandparents did. I mean, seriously. I mean, it's like there's been 2 generations in there, probably that last 60, 80 years that, you know, boom, went to like, where did you lose the information? You know, and all this in 100 and some years, it just blows me. Right. And so it's one of the things in here. And Sam says too, it's sad to see people with advanced tech. But the thing is, you got to remember is even with that CA word, which I won't mention here, but we call it CA in our field, it doesn't exist. It's a frequency. It's been induced, and usually by the first injections that you probably took in the 60s and 70s. Okay, that's where it stems from, you know. And one of the things in here is that if people need to get a hold of it, yes, Eduardo's asking me to reach out. They have to reach out to me. I don't go, it's not like ambulance changing, but I don't have time to go out and look for people. Okay, so if they want, they can get a hold of me. I have no problems about doing that. And in there, you know, like I said, you can look up Royal Rife. You can look up my favorite thing back like 25 years ago when I used to be brought between Saskatoon to Vancouver. I used to teach medicine as the 21st century for all the biofeedback people for the Quantum Alliance, and which turned into the IQUIM. By the way, we have universities I'm part of. IQUIM is a bona fide complementary alternative biofeedback university, a medical university run by medical doctors, medical nurses. They bring in like people like Bruce Lipton and everyone else to teach, you know, and Ryan Williams and stuff like that. I've been part of that university for over close to 20 years. Okay. Because we are putting out PhDs and doctorates and stuff like that in our fields. People need to do that. And no, I appreciate that, but I can't go looking for people. They need to want, and they need to learn that part. You can give people information, say, if you want, you can do this. This is available. It's not just about frequency. It's alkalinity. It's about doing enemas. It's about doing colon hydrotherapy. It's about doing peristeam hydrotherapy. If they won't do colonics, and geez, it's so hard to try and clean the colon system and parasite cleansing if you're not doing enemas and colonics. You know, it totally is the key. And it doesn't matter if you're in optimal health, Fresh Start Retreat, Hippocrates Institute, all the top institutes in the world, you know, we do enemas and colonics. Okay, or even a steam chair or something. But how are you going to get that stuff that's embedded into the colon? It doesn't want to come out, and then it's glued in with the biofilm. The only way to soak it off properly is water, and salt waters and tea waters, not per se coffee necessarily. But like I said, there's a stage I take my clients through. There's about putting things in rectally, like rectal suppositories and vaginal suppositories and all sorts of things that I do because it's 100% absorbed there, or using tinctures rather than the pills. That's why essential oils can be absorbed inside out, outside in. Okay, it's the only thing that does it. And if you know about cancer, it vibrates at 25, what we call millivolts. And almost anything below 40 millivolts, you're starting to slowly die, and it flatlines. So it's an electrical charge. So cancer runs in the 40s, by the way. And just to get your brain function, you need to be close to 100. Okay, let alone get to the other chakras and other biofields. So the only way to do that is also with essential oils. So those are things as well. I'm going to stick that in here because, of course, they won't let me screen share either today. I'm going to give you a desk reference. You can look up these things for people. There is basically a set of oils or combinations of oils by frequency. The oils are frequency driven. Okay, so peppermint is like 78, megahertz, and spruce oil is 600 megahertz. So as I talked about, you have to vibrate at a certain level. And so these are very, very important. Are people going to be wanting to do this? And so when you start seeing children like you're mentioning in here with, scoliosis and colitis and they've got asthma and diseases in here and gut issues and the whole immune, you got to remember almost everything starts in that kitchen. Okay, it's what we fed the children, what we still continue to feed the children, what we haven't changed. We're using box stuff rather than like fresh fruits. Organic, foraged would be like therapeutic, let alone organic, but something is better than nothing. and getting into where you're hearing like lots of watermelon juice and lots of Concord grape juices, right? Those are the ones, they're dark, they got stuff, things that really provide a lot of, nutrients like aloe vera, things like that. There are so many things that are out there. They're, in what we call the superfood realm, or super herbs or herbs, whatever you want to talk about. But in the whole superfood thing, hemp seeds, right? Aloe vera, raw cacao if you can take it, goji berries. Then you get into the adaptogens and stuff like that, your anti-inflammatories, turmeric, like curcumin, getting into ashwagandha, getting into the, really cool Ayurvedic powdered herbs, right? A lot of stuff, by the way, if grid goes down, I will tell you probably within less than about 20 minutes, you have all the herbs that you need to heal you. So if you know how to forage and do permaculture and biodynamics, virtually everything probably you need could be in there. How many of us don't have trees? Or, take all your weeds, like your dandelions, everything else. There's one of the biggest answers right now is to the CA problem, right? You got to alkalize people, and I give them the it's easy pills, right? And just tell them it's a mineral vitamin pill. It's a, food pill. It's a green pill. And it is, because it's giving you those greens, because people just are not taking greens. And if you know about juicing, I would get everyone on juicing, beet juices and carrot juicing and red potato juicing and all those celery and stuff. You should have juicers rather than just doing smoothies and stuff like that. Those are the key. Castor oil, all these things are vital. And so if you go back and take a look at, I put the media set in here, but I got to get you your essential oil desk reference here. This is an amazing tool. I want you to take a look at this. You can take a look at the biofeedback. Everything that's basically in this book I'm going to give you here is actually in here. So take a look at this 7th edition. These are the textbooks that I have here in there. So as I said, there is what they call it, and when you give someone a diagnose, it means you've died to the knowledge, and it's all frequency, right? So right now, rather than you vibrating up here at a couple hundred, and I'm looking at a biofield that's, hot pink, like in the 600-700s, or, it's like the Hawkins charts, right? Power versus force and all the, levels of consciousness. When you actually look in here, see that it won't let me screen share. I'll do it this way. Okay. When you start looking at different people, you're going to see the people that have got low energy. You see how gray, beige, brown, stuff like this, right? And so what happens is you can start running the frequencies, and you're going to use the device basically similar to, think of it like a battery booster. And we start running the tones, and you can start seeing the changes within the client just within like even half an hour. So the idea is to run it. There are some of my different things in here as well. Picking up acupuncture points, right? On here. So like I said, this is really quite easy to use. It's not difficult. I talked about in here, like I said, there's just so much you can be doing. And like I said, most people, their energies are so low. This is actually one of the things too that you can see that's really amazing here. You can see as we're going through the acupuncture. So I could say, hey, I just want to work on that acupuncture point. You might think you have carpal tunnel or something weird, or something is affecting the heart. Well, there's your heart meridian. So we could just run these frequencies through you. So just like a needle, I can send a different, instead of a tuning fork, I can hit the frequency of the sound of the biofeedback here, or all the above. So these are really, really important that I think if you take a look at it, you would be duly impressed, on here. And like I said, it's not that difficult to do. All these things, like I said, you can literally go in from someone that's feeling really rough, very low energy. You can see where it is. That's not healthy. And as you start moving them, you can start seeing, are they losing energy? Where are they losing energy? Where is it being sucked? Where's the loosh harvesting going? And then move them into that. Okay, that took me about an hour. Let me tell you, the Genius Biofeedback on here is going to make a difference. And that's running all those frequencies as I talked about, doing the biofeedback. So that is the type of things either you can do and try playing with, or I can do professionally, or combinations of both. Like I said, you can be up and running and using these biofeedback machines in less than 20 minutes. Watch a YouTube. You can do what I can do. I can push buttons as well as you can. So a lot of these things on here. And then what will give me the frequency of what you need. So it's the same thing that this is the condition, what they call CA. I'm going to find the matching condition, right? And do this with the sound wave from the biofeedback, and then this will implode. Okay, that's how they do ultrasound with kidney stones. Same idea. So does that make sense? Hopefully that's pretty in here. And Sam says, that's great. We're beating statistics. Okay, so one of the things too is, like I said, this is what we're looking at. That's where biofeedback has come to. It's not just biofeedback. We're using biosounds and voice analysis, right? So some people, they used to send in the old days, they would send me their nails. They'd send me their hair, right, in an envelope, and then we'd have a physical touch. But you know what? Looking at you, taking a picture is almost as great. Like, seriously, it's just about as effective. So I would just as soon go off the voice, meet with you, take a picture, and go from that point. It's just as easy. I don't need to have blood, and I don't need to have urine, and I don't need to have toenails and fingernails and hair these days. So that's why the biofeedback using a voice is probably the most advanced that Ryan Williams did. And Kill says, I was on Ibrance. It almost killed me then Zeno. And now you're on this. Okay. And again, that's what it is. You know, if you look at what it is, these are drugs. I'm a nurse. I took pharmacology. Okay. They're giving you basically liquid poison. They're giving you things like mustard gas, and you got to read it. No one has ever beaten anything by taking more chemicals. It's just not possible. And it's part of the mind control or the spelling that they use or the hexing on people. That's why it's called, we're giving you a diagnosis, because you died to the Gnostics. You don't know the truth. You don't know what the Gnostics, what the knowledge is, right? So if they can manipulate you, you will. No one is ever healed. No one has ever gone into remission using that alone, ever. It just isn't possible, and it will come back as it coats things with a vengeance. Okay, so half the time is getting you what is natural. I gave you a book there. You can just type in, what are those essential oils for my condition? What is the alkalinity? How come people can take like baking soda and borax and less than $3 and they don't have it in their blood, urine, or whatever? I've had lots of clients do that. I've had people that have been on insulin and stuff like that and come off of it in a month because it doesn't exist. So all it does is it allows me to do assessment, but that you're still doing the consultant. So I still am doing aromatherapy. I'm still doing herbology. We're still looking at electrolytes and minerals, and I'm just using it as another testing or assessment. I'm not going to diagnose you, but this is a much better replacement to a diagnostic machine. Okay, it's used in conjunction. And then if we need to do stuff, that's what it is here. And the thing is, when you are afraid to go natural, chemo is not natural. It's not. No drug, no pharmaceutical is natural. It's got a side effect because it causes brain damage. When you lose your hair, do you know what you're doing? You're causing brain damage. That means it's all in there. Okay. In other words, you've blocked your, how many chakras? 5th, 6th, and 7th. You've calcified your third eye and done brain damage. It doesn't have to spread because most people are not, you're probably not acidic, you're acidic, not alkaline, and you're not getting rid of your shit. And until you get rid of the toxins, the bugs, and the parasites, we know that's what it is. You can go to all my books and look up Hulda Clark, you know, a cure. And I don't use that word, but as they used, her book was called A Cure for All Cancers, A Cure for All Advanced Cancers, A Cure for All Advanced Diseases, right? Then the problem is to look in the mirror, and then you have to deal with the mind control and the emotion. And again, what is the fear? And most people have a fear of being sovereign, of being healthy, because there's also becomes an emotional thing that people like to be labeled because they get attention. And that's a whole mental, psychological, psychiatric kind of thing that we have to deal with as well. Okay, because there's no such thing as just a disease. And if it's not natural, but the thing is, if you're doing that, and most people I will tell you that have gone into the oncological allopathics, and as people don't know, what is the root word of pharmacy? Do you know what it is in scriptures? Not that I have to follow Bibles and scriptures, but if you want basically a translation, in English, pharmaceutical means sorcery. So that's where people are going. They are violating their own tribals, their own laws, even their own law books, so to speak. And part of the problem in here is that that becomes the issue. And that it's got nothing to do with Western medicine. It has to do with what? Allopathics. It has to do with fake, artificial, semi-synthetics, right? And anyone that has been in the oncology department, I challenge anyone that does not have to take injections or put the nasal injections, cyber technology in, right? The same thing that you're seeing in there, right? And again, it has nothing to do. These guys are all players. And the thing too is that these guys were probably taken out a long time ago. So I don't even want to get into that drama of that circus. But the thing is, they're not in here for you. And if I do that, like I said, the whole idea of I can't even do half the stuff that I would have done before 2020. Actually, it was 2019, not at all. It was 2017. So what I did before 2017, right, 9 years ago, I cannot do the same therapies. What I give to me, I can't give to someone that has taken that kind of cyber technology and genetic, manipulation. You can't do the same thing for me that I have to do for someone as well. Because as I said, most of the stuff got into a cell thing. It's got nothing to do with staying in one spot. It is not just in your whatever they want people to think. So you just can't use nicotine because there's actually like natural nicotine herbal things on Amazon, by the way. I have like 7 forms of clean nicotine. So even that, I knew that there was thousands of venoms in 2004, but also knew how to deal with it with what was local to where the snakes were. Did anyone ever think about that? That's kind of important. There's usually a remedy right next to the poison or the venom. Frankincense is an anti-venom, by the way. It's an anti-snake antidote. Did anyone know that? So is snake root. Why is it called snake root? Because they use it for snake venom, right? There's a lot of things other than just using tobacco. So like I said, there's a lot of things in here. You would like me to go natural? What is it you want to do? Why would you want to be unnatural or synthetic? I don't get this. Why would you want to put poisons into that? I just don't get that mentality. I don't. And part of the things what I would love no one. I don't even think people should have had this choice. I don't even think that this choice of having allopathic versus natural, it should even be a choice. It shouldn't be here on the planet to start with. You should have never had pharmaceuticals like that to start with, and knowing that bicarb water, you can Google it, guys with stage 4 cancer using bicarb and borax with a little bit of maple syrup, right? Hey, what did they take? 2 glasses a day for a month. So like 60 glasses of baking soda water in a month, couple teaspoons. What was that? $3-4. And some, essential oils of clove and frankincense or wherever. And then I can talk to you about steam chairs and things like that. And they don't have it because it doesn't exist. It's a condition of frequency. It's a condition of bioterrain. In other words, people are rotting. Why do you have parasites? Because you're rotting inside like maggots. So if you change the place, just like you put baking soda and borax out to get rid of ants and spread it around the house and mites and whatever else you want, guess what? You don't have it inside either. These are the things in there. You're not going to spread in there. You're already doing that. You've made that choice, in there. And I think that's one of the things that we've got to do. And so one of the things that's really, really important is that people make appropriate choices. And to me, it's about being informed choices. If you heard what I said really closely, and I just love Danny, seriously, when people go out and they start talking about remorphomic or things that have happened, or when we talked about ostriches and we talked about in Ireland, Professor Dolores Cahill, there are some people that just put ourselves out there and mystifying. Mark is there. Good evening. Bon nuit. Comment ça va? How are you too, Mark? Great to see you. One of the things in there is that you need to know that it can be done. And I will guarantee you, not only can I guarantee you, I already know, right? The minute people have made that choice, you've also hastened it. And it's the same thing when anyone took an injection, 25%, then 50%, then 75% immediately. And just wait till the things start getting triggered. The 5G is already going live, the 6G, the 7G, the 8G. And now with alignments and stuff coming in that they can start doing on eclipses and stuff, all these things will be activated. All those things, an injection, as you call the V word, right? Those cyber injections, as Sabrina Wallace and I talk about, with the wide body area network, we call it W-band or the M-band, the medical body area network. They have put the injections or the chemo you're talking about already contains biosensors, no different than the injections. Okay, whether it's in pill form or whatever, they have got biochips in them. They have had them since day one. And if this is news to some people, then it's news that you guys need to have. I talked about that very much when I was with James Rank a little bit, right? I knew it was going to happen a long time before it happened. I saw him months before, and he got out of the chair while we were talking, and he couldn't breathe. I said, we call it SOB, but I said, you're short of breath. He says, I know I can't breathe. It's just whatever. So I sit in the chair all the time and I film. I said, you can't breathe. I heard him wheezing the minute he got out of the chair. I said, you need to get that looked after. I said, you've gone too far. And that was months and months and months before all this happened. I already knew. And I said, you can't be doing this. You can't be doing this. You can't be doing this. And we need to do this and substitute. He goes, but those are all my quote unquote. You want to know what he told me? He said, those are all my sponsors. That's how I make my money, Karen. Okay. And do you know how many times I've heard that? I've heard that on 3 different shows in the last couple of years. That is how I make my money. Okay. And so I watched what he did. I gave him the warnings. I gave him the information, and people choose to ignore it. And that is when you are responsible, everyone. And that's what I tried to put out. You are responsible for you. It's not there and there and there. Yes, they shouldn't have been doing it. They were prescribing medicines, herbs, liquids, terahertz wands without any education, outside their scope of practice, and doing it like prescribing medicine without a license, which to me is a no-no. Okay? You can't even give certain herbs together, or certain medications you can't give homeopathics to, by the way. Right? You know, you're not even supposed to, because some of them, usually what it will do is it will actually start helping you and healing. Then you'll start decreasing your meds and you won't need them anymore. So usually when they say don't do that, because in small increments, it would probably win you off those meds. But in here, those are some of the things that are really important. So Sam's got a question here. Do I do anything other than just your treatments? Do anything other herbalism, aromatherapy, face reading, medical intuitive, colon hydrotherapy, peristeam hydrotherapy, dark field blood? Do you want me to keep going? Massage, reflexology, Vitaflex, Tibetan reflexology. You know, if you actually looked at some of my sheets here, that's my checklist of what I'm going to look for on you. You see that? Iridology, digestion, enzymes, glands, organs, body system, toxins, infections, neurotransmitters, emotional, mental. Then we'll talk about some remedies. Oops, by the way, I have to educate you about what a yoni steam is. Got to educate you about pH. All those things. Oh, then we'll move to the other category. And what do we have there? Kirlian photography, acupuncture meridians, TCM, Ayurvedic, Panchakarma, Noje frequencies, sacred geometry, all those things I'm looking. Blood types, everything. That's just the start of what I do, right? And in here, how do we look at people with a biofeedback machine? Those are all the things I can look at you with the biofeedback machine energetically, okay? So I can look at you a little bit different. Okay. Did you ever see anyone teach you colon hydrotherapy like this? Did you know your butt, your first root chakra, and your head are on the same thing? I can tell you where the blocks are. You think you got something in your breast and your thyroid and your prostate? I'll tell you where it is. Everything is connected holistically. Okay. And the question here, because you obviously came too late, is what is biofeedback? Biofeedback are basically energetic sound machines that we can use anywhere on Zoom, on the internet, and these machines will allow us to energetically look at you in your biofield. So think of it like ultrasound. I can ultrasound you anywhere in the world, right? These are things in here because most people don't know what I'm talking about. So I had to make them in pictures for my, stuff out here, right? So these are biofeedback machines that I can make remedies on, like homeopathics on here. Okay, all the different things, animals, horses, iridology, emotional stuff, all this stuff. These are biofeedback machines in here. And then these are just a hint of some of the therapies that I can do. So teaching you about yoni steams, navel candling. Do I do therapies? Yes. Do you know what a yoni pearl is? I do. Do you? Do you know what a klima board is? I do. I teach you how to do these at home. So I don't know if that gives you a hint. Okay. There you go. Trained and I was certified. I don't keep anything because right now they'd probably try to shut me down and have every 3-letter agency back into my clinics again, which I don't need. Okay. So in here, these are biofeedback machines that you can use. They are sounds that you can put on, and we can look at the system, any organ energetically through sound waves. Frequency is the word. And when you don't know, we give you the manual here because we don't expect you to necessarily know what we know. I can't show you all of the biofeedback on here because it's something that I need to usually do on Zoom so we can screen share. But all of these are available. These are softwares that you can put on, and you can look at your system through the voice, through the picture, and then like muscle testing, your voice will go against a plethora of mine has about 40,000 frequencies. So you get to basically go pick what is the best thing based on your chemistry. So that's what it does. So you can look it up at Insight Health Apps. I put it up there if you scroll up, or I can do it again now. I work primarily, the ones that I like the best are Insight Health Apps because they put out the most amount of ones, and their machines will do more than my expensive ones, like even Rife and stuff. A lot of the original Rife ones that you actually hold on to paddles, kind of like ECT or TENS machine. And if you've taken things like the drugs that you're taking, or you took the injections, or you have pacemakers, or you're pregnant, I don't want you hooking up with electrical currents or going through the body. I'm just using sound. Just like tuning forks, we put 200 tuning forks in your brain. The sound wave goes through and it'll start making corrections. So basically you can use the sound of calcium, the sound of iron, the sound of vitamin D if you're too low. There is a frequency just about everything on this planet. So that's what it is. I think we'll leave it in here. Sam, you're okay. Makilko and Mr. Fine Mark is there. Okay, so I think we've basically kind of got the idea of what we're doing. And if you want, there's a lot of stuff. Like I said, at the Frequency Fridays, you can go back. There's a lot with the categories. Today, I just want to kind of focus on, I wanted to screen share, but apparently the computer will not cooperate after this power surge. And one of the things as well, like I said, there's a lot of stuff in there. If you go to Facebook and go to my albums, I put the links in here. You can do a lot of things in there. And like I said, I'm not one of those therapists that are charging $200 to $300, and trying to give you a psychic reading and tell you about the Anunnaki taking you at night in the grays. But, one of the things is I do have the programs to see what are the different programs or MK Ultras or programs you might be with. Okay, so I can look at it from that point of view. If there's been any sexual abuse, ritual abuse, I can look at it from that point of view. So life coach, counseling, whatever you want to call it, it's frequency. We're just looking at the stress, and then we're trying to bring balance back to whatever is imbalanced. And that's really all this is about, is getting people to, I think, the optimal health that you can possibly be at this point. Like I said, there's a lot of things that have occurred in the last couple of years that are just not reversible with all the different techniques that we have available to us. Because I work with people like Tony Pantalesco and other people, but we want to get people to the most optimal level of health and get them educated. Because, like I said, even the stuff that was put into those injections with the needles, there was let's just give you an example. There's 100 and some ingredients. Yeah, your tobacco is going to take care of maybe one. Your essential oil is going to do another one. And you can't get everything because it's now gotten into the system head to toe. Okay. And there's no way we can totally do that. They killed. Well, who is they? Let's just face it. Like I said, all the people there was a lot of people surrounding him that gave him pharmaceutical meds or semi-synthetic pharmaceutical meds that hastened it. Who ultimately was there? We are all being subjected to the same thing. Yes, we shouldn't be dealing with AI, data centers and golden domes and all this kind of crap. I agree with you. But you know what? We need to take responsibility. And there are some people in some areas with radiation that have actually done okay. So if you actually looked at what happened in different parts like Fukushima and especially Chernobyl, there are some people that actually strengthened their immune system. They altered and adapted. They did shaga. They got alkaline. They used the, alkalizing foods and herbs, and they did not come down with the CAs. Okay. So we have to look at that. And if we go to, us and them or whatever, there are a lot of things I know that you don't know. And I will just tell you, I've had more people sleeping with people, intercoursing, that took this stuff, you don't know who he slept with. You don't know who was with him. You don't know who was injected around him. I do. So until you actually have working knowledge as to someone, and again, a lot of people don't want to fully disclose. A lot of times they're very embarrassed that they actually felt, they're embarrassed to tell you that they actually slept with people or had been sleeping people that were injected. And guess what you now have? An injection is the same as an ejaculation, right? Just like you can shed, it can be contact, it can be anything within 6 feet is actually in there. Just like a tower's got a 30-mile radius. Well, guess what? When you put the same radioactivity stuff in, like a transmitter, like those 5G and all the different transmitters up there and the microwave discs, they've got baby discs inside them. So let's take a look on there. It did not have to happen nearly the way it did as soon as it had to. And even before you had thyroid problems, those were the things that started causing that. Okay? So you got to look at what happened. Like I said, I had a client that used terahertz, put the feed in. I put my feed in. I got shocked. I was like, you got to be joking, right? Just like foot baths. I got shocked. Electrical currents go through because it's not compatible with my energy field, not compatible with my genetics. My other clients put them on, whether it was the foot stuff, the terahertz, or the patches. Congestive heart failure, create breathing, respiratory distress, and another one in congestive heart failure. Okay, another one had basically a stroke. These little strokes and stuff are not for all folks. Okay, that's what I'm saying. Well, you need to do that. So even the super soldiers, again, who's got all this knowledge? But part of this stuff in here, what do you mean they are not knowledgeable? Right? And even when, did they wipe his memories? He's been cloned out so many times. I mean, it's like having a possession. Something took possession of that physical avatar, right? And something changed in there. And you got to remember what people knew 10, 15 years ago. He's not the same individual when I did a show with him. I did a show on him because I just wanted to know after he did 3 hours on Nasara and like changes on the horizon. Like, I got that stuff, but like, do I actually agree with what's going with Nasara right now? Biggest ops there is, right? People need to live in the moment. They need to have their food, their water, the pole shift, the great migration, the stuff coming through the airways, right? Do people have food, water? Are you in the best location ever? Do you know where the pole shift is? Have you looked at the safe places yet? Have you looked at the, Zeta talks? Have you looked at where the future maps are or Skelling's map? Or guess what? We're in the middle of a pole shift. Guess what? We're part of that processional game. I can show one thing in here I will give you, and then I am going to toodaloo off. It's something that came from Meredith Quinn. These are from the tribes. This is ancient tribal knowledge and lore that was passed down in a few books and stuff like that, which I happen to have, which I happen to have most of them. And in here, those particular teachings are basically, how would I put it? It's got what happened in the pole shift and stuff like that. There are all these books in here, and there's thousands and thousands of pages that go into here with the pole shift and the diagrams and what's about to come and what's been passed down for the last 5 epochs orally, because there just isn't anything written, as my friend Dr. Richard Miller talks about, Doc Ram. There just isn't anything like that. And so when you start looking at some of that insight, it becomes a bit of a problem, and not everyone's got everything. That's why I went on the road for 10 years and I met face to face, and I went on, meeting with these different elders and tribes, and what do they know, and what's the background, and where's this base, or why would this not be great, or up beyond the Canadian Shield, or where did the flood come last time? What was in your creation stories? Oh, what did my prophecy rocks say outside my window? Those are all very, very important. And those are something, I'm actually going to give you something here. You can take a look at it. One of the things in here, it was called Savage Sovereignty. And then I'm not sure if I put him underneath there with Dr. Dina Churchill. And so she did some great talks. So did Lisa Wolf at called Mending the Hoop. And I'm going to stick this in the chat box for you guys. Okay. This is actually how law works. This is not common law. I don't want common law in here, but this is how you come from a tribe. And that's what I was getting to Danny. Almost everyone comes from a clan and a tribe. And this is the problem. When you don't know, if I say to people, what's your blood type? I may be positive. I come from the Ursuline bloodline and can trace it down to the tribe of Ephraim. I can trace it down to all sorts of different tribal stuff, right? Where did it come from? When did it show up? What's, like I said, what's involved in that? Did you go back on your mother's side? Did you do your genealogy? I spent 3 years doing my genealogy, finding my mother to my grandmother to whatever, right? How are people going to be doing that? I mean, the word sovereign means to be under the reign of the queen clan mother, right? It means what is, sauvage means. It means silvictus, those that live among the trees. Doesn't mean sitting in a 15-minute city. Those are all the different things that are so, so important, and how can, if the women don't love themselves, and, I start teaching this thing about yoni steams and peri-steam hydrotherapy. And for men, I got lots of people that have steam chairs with the herbs and the oils to keep their love life intact, that they all feel like they're 16 because they're smudging and they're doing an internal purification, right? That's what those steam chairs were used, right? And they may be playing backgammon and whatever they're playing now in a crib, but there are ways to do that. And how can you go make a claim or think that you're sovereign when you don't even know your blood type or which nation you came from? And it sure as hell ain't the Corporation of the United States or the Republic of the United States or the Corporation of Canada, which is all defunct. And so no one is all, from there. And there were a lot of people in the books, which are called The Ringing Cedars of Russia. If you haven't read those, go read the PDFs. They're for free. But The Ringing Cedars of Russia talk all about this. And it has nothing to do with Russia. Russia is a word that means Rus, which means knowledge. So it's just like Ayurvedic means knowledge. Skill means knowledge, right? And so those are the different things here. But The Ringing Cedars of Russia, watch a couple of YouTubes. Start looking at some of these PDFs in here because they were actually put into experiences, but they actually teach some of the original. How are you going to set, or what was the template before everything was colonized? What were the laws before these countries were set up? Where did 100 million people get killed, right? They have to kill 100 million people before they set up their republic. Did you think about that? So the republic, we don't want a republic. We don't want a reset because those are the people that came over from the Roman army. And I don't care if they have a law of war manual or Title 10. Those are not the original laws. And just remember, when people stand in their own power, nothing is more important than that. And they have a duty and an obligation to actually keep those original 6 treaties from the 4 different, what's a medicine wheel? Well, it's not just 4. There'd be way more. There'd be 13 if they really told you. But let's just say there was 4. And you just thought there was red and white and Asian and blacks, right? They have 6 peace treaties. That's your nation. Find out which one you belong to, right? You don't marry into one. You are that. My children are from my clan and tribe, not their fathers. The father then would be responsible for his sister's children to look after and protect the tribe, right? And that's how they've done it. They do it in nature. Same thing. That's what nature's law is. So in there, let's exactly, and you've got it exactly. It's called mitochondrial, the mitochondrial gene or the mitochondrial DNA, or what do they call it? The mitochondrial Eves. And how many Eves would there have been? Okay, wasn't 4, wasn't 5, wasn't 1. Try 13. Okay, they talk about the 12 tribes. Very rarely the 13th is hidden, right? Or it's a secret or sacred one because, again, they all came together. So I want to leave with you with those thoughts. You can certainly get a hold of me. How many of you guys are on my Facebook? Say Facebook in there. So if you're on my Facebook, put Facebook. If you're on my X, put X. If you're on all the above, I've just noticed probably 20 people have joined my Substack today, which is great. I guess I'll have to start making some more Substacks. The least things I'm ever on, but I do have some Substacks back there. And I will restack a lot of things if I think they're important. So if you are on there and if you want to have a one-to-one talk, I think we were in here. I think we were a Dominion. Guess what? You weren't. I got to go way back. I got to get that Tartarian. We got to get all the mind control wiped out of this monarchy colony crap thing. So those are the things that we need to go in there. Oh, look at it, Zosha. It's super, Karen. Much love. Zosha's great. Zosha and a bunch of people are here, and they're part of the Tony Pantalleresco groups. He's also on Stoat. Most people haven't heard of that. but Stout, whatever, STOATE. And Tony Pantleros goes there with his Peton and Friends, PTON and Friends. Again, a lot of people are in there. Like I said, it's really important. People are coming together and no one's got it all. We're all having to do this, and you will have to be in the communities. You need to know your local people, your local tribe, your local sovereigns, your savages, right? And Zosha says, yep, that's where I met you, spider mummers. So, those are the kind of things that are really interesting. And so, yes, the spider mothers, that's right. Those are really interesting. And so a lot of those things too, the great web, the great mothers, the great whatever, they used to call this queens of the heaven and all sorts of stuff. A lot of things are really cool, in there. So hopefully, I think we all learned something today. Thank you for your questions. I really appreciate it, in there. And like I said, take a look. There's a Kieran McDonald. Might take me a couple days to add you because they only let me talk to 4 people a day now. But I have a K.A. Lucyk that's on there. I've got the YouTube. I've got a backup for Rumble in case they want to give me one more strike and we're just about done. But whatever. I mean, we're going to do what we can and give some love back and give some thanks. Go to, Dani's Facebook and tell her that you really enjoyed the show. Put some comments under there. I'm going to be checking those for a while. Pass that email around. I'm going to start putting up some of the shows I did. I did some really great shows, actually. I did one probably least known that, they're not big out there, but they were powerful. And maybe I'll put a couple of those in here. Just let me see if I can find it under my show, under my albums. I did one actually a couple months ago, and it was really quite profound because some people ask the right questions, right? And when you're getting the right questions, you can bring everything out here. Like I'm going to put one in here called Heal Everything Now. There's a little bit of information on every condition, every disease here. And I challenge you to take a look at it. If you don't know everything on there, then get yourself aware of what's on there. There's probably about close to 200 memes, pictures I want you to take a look at because sometimes you know what they are and sometimes you don't. So that might be really helpful for you. I call that my Heal Everything Now, my 101. That's how you can get into it. I think that's really important. Most people don't know what a V-steam is. So if you don't know what the V-steam is, I'm going to put that here. It's also an aphrodisiac. It's also for couples. It's also what they use to cleanse and get rid of emotional releases here, by the way. Yoni or V-steams, or for guys, it was called an A-steam or just a pelvic chair steam. Again, there's schools of this. I've gone to 2 schools. How many people have gone to the Peristeam Hydrotherapy School? Me. Anyway, how many teach it? Me. Anyway, so that's what you call the red tent, or some people call the dark lodge or stuff like that. But it was for men and women. That's where all your gold little chairs and your steam baths came from before the Roman steam bath times. So those are some of the things that I think might be really helpful for you. On here, I put your tuning fork one in here already. And one of the ones I did was shows because a few people asked about that. So I'll just put the show one in here. Voice mapping. I've got a thing like Carrington events, all sorts of stuff, you name it. Essential oils, how to take them internally, externally, what a loyal jurisdiction is on that, what are sacred kin domains, what are, remedies for EMF, ley lines, a few couple things, different healing modalities are really, really important. All those things, like I said, put into context what you think, would be helpful. On here. And I did put, I've put Danny's show in here already today. I did a bunch with, to do with the ostriches. A lot of people were not aware about the bioweapons. Thousands of bioweapons were given to ostriches, in here, different shows, Navigating the Truth. We've done Dabuma. I did some with here, superhuman stuff, Doc Ram. I've done lots with Dr. Richard Allen Miller, some with Rob. There's Future Shift is in here. Lauren, a lot of this stuff. Pamela Richardson, really like pivotal people in the fields here of natural health to do with the injections and stuff like that. In 5D, Shungite Reality, the people that were U.S. Army Security Intelligence Divisions, I did shows with here. Rex Bear, the Leak Project is amazing. I was just talking to Rex. He said, I was thinking about you, just talking about the ghost murmur, and there's Karen, and you happen to be in the chat room. I said, yeah, I guess we're overdue after 10 years. Brandon Thomas, I've done lots of shows there at his as well. these are like really well known, like in the field. And of course, I've done a lot for Insight Health Apps, ACIO, Jessica Morocco. I did some with James Rank, like I said, way back when in here. Typical Skeptics we've done a bunch with. And again, as I said, there are so many different things, like I said, over the years. And I put some things in here, like healing books for some people. One of the things I'm going to put down is Heal Yourself. There's an ebook. Let's give that to you guys right now. I'm giving you guys homework. You realize that. I joke not. Can you see this book here? This goes back 20 some years. Actually, I think he was out of the Kootenays, if I remember. It was Ron Gardner. Ron Gardner wrote this book called Conscious Health. I got this book probably back like 2004 and 5. So when clients used to come to me, and I used to, it would be about $120 back then, and they got this book. So after I gave them the recommendations, we did biofeedback, herbs, oils, put them on crystal tables, maybe did some enemas and colonics, whatever we did for that couple hours. I gave them that book. And I said, when you're done that, if you have any questions, get back to me. And when the client said, he goes, you actually expect me to know this, don't you? And I said, I know what it is. So why don't you learn how your system works? And it's everything in here. It was kind of like the Hulda Clark book, but these were the keys. And that's what I used to give my clients instead of a prescription, by the way. There's real basics here, natural health. And it was an excellent book back then. I think it's out of print now. But, or I would give them a book on juicing or whatever they, I thought they needed to have. It's about energy. It's about communication and stuff like that. And this is the rumble that I wanted to send for you. This is a really great one here. I did with cutting edges in here a little bit with Mike. So I'm going to give you guys that one. And then hopefully I can find one I did here with Solana, which goes by Sherry Fox. Oh, I can't give you that. Let's see. Yes, I can. Sometimes when you cut that off, it will work. And one of the other things, like I said, in there, you need to know how to work with this. This is a brilliant one I did actually with Carrie Cassidy. How many of you know who Carrie Cassidy is at Project Camelot? This is to do with frequencies and what was going on. So if you like all the Atlas and all that kind of whatever Nubia stuff is, that was up in there. And so that is something that you might want to take a look at. We did basically healing frequencies, and we did that with Dr. Debbie or Drake as well. Oh, sweet, too many things that won't go. So you can look at the Project Camelot portal in there. And the one, in there I did last year, I'm going to give you this one because I think it's really important. This was done with Sabrina Wallace's Synergy Groups, or an offshoot of Sabrina Wallace. This is basically just me sitting in the, living room and bringing out yoni steams and how to make teas and stuff like that. So I think it's really important. These will be all your homework till next week, right? Okay. And then you'll see this. And these links, they should be there in the replay, I think, in here. So hopefully you will get that. Let me just put them in here. If not, I usually put them in. These are all in my Facebook. So if you're in Facebook, go to my Facebook albums. They're all in there. Everything is in the Facebook albums. They should be in there. So I think that would be helpful. So yeah, if you guys know about that. And Sam says, I love homework. I really want to learn things. You're like a sponge. Great. That's what we're here to do. We're here to share information, right? This is not about, I can't heal anyone. We can barely do ourselves these days. I'm getting the same towers and the same serration, the same toxins and everything in these geoengineering. I'm still breathing the same thing. But these are things that have been helpful and known to help. And you don't know till a lot of times you try them, right? Like I said, some people are allergic. That's why I like going to the sensitivity. Some people are allergic to strawberries and some people are allergic to blueberries. Some people are allergic to cacao and not, right? So those are some of the things that you take a look at and just see, is this working, right? And so, like I said, once you take a look at this, you'll see if some of this stuff resonates, some of it doesn't. And again, just take a notepad. Oh, just wait. I think I can cut off the thing here. I'll give you the one we did with Carrie Cassidy on frequencies. Right? I did Carrie Cassidy's show. I was busy for 3 weeks solid in this chair. Didn't move. Right? I usually put in 12 to 14, 15, 16 hours a day, covering all the different things. It's kind of like nurse on call right now. So, like I said, if you've got Teams, if you've got Twitter, but Teams, Zoom, I can do StreamYard if we need. We can do Telegram. but I prefer Zoom. If you guys are able to download Zoom, FaceTime is nice, but Zoom, I can screen share and really get you some great stuff. You can also record it on your side if you want. There's some advantages to that. So I'm going to leave you for this evening. It's been 2 hours. It's been enjoyable. It's been a long day. So it's been like 5-6 hours. I've got a doctor actually calling me, medical doctors. They're going into this kind of therapy. They're doing biofeedback. So they've been calling me from Istanbul because they've heard about me. So you don't know where you're going to be. It's law of attraction, right? And it's nice to see like a lot of doctors like Dr. Debbie Drake and these medical doctors coming in, doing our biofeedback with us. So Bon nuit, Sasibo, all that. Arrivederci, Limlich, Minwich, and all that sort of stuff. So anyway, bon nuit. Catch you guys later.